Hey everybody, Bob Chick back with another edition of the Voice of Bodybuilding, brought to you by our good friends at Redcon One, and of course powered by Panada Sport. All right, folks, I've given this one a lot of thought. Very difficult to put together, but something I've been wanting to do for a long time now. Subject of this VOB is the most underrated bodybuilder of all time. Now, we got to define this because this does not mean somebody with the most potential, somebody that should have turned pro. It's not even somebody that did it exceptionally well, but they never won the Olympia. Somebody who was perpetually in the top five doesn't mean they were underrated, just means they were very good and had very good competition at the same time. So I have painstakingly brought this down to 5 because there's about 10 that could have made the list. Honorable mention to Danny Padilla and Rick Wayne, 2 great bodybuilders out there, but just on the cusp in 6 and 7. But I have broken it down to 5. This is a great debate topic, so get those comments in under the comments. You know I respond to every one of them, guys, so get out there, give me your opinion, whether you agree, disagree, or anything in between, and we can have a lot of fun with this. All right, here we go. In 5th place, Roy Callender. Now, as you can see from the photo that you're looking at right now, Roy Callender was very well put together. 4-time champ, also winner of the Pro Universe. He had 4 top 5 finishes at the Olympia, including the 1981 Olympia, the most talked about and controversial. We all know that one, Franco winning. Roy Callender in 4th. A lot of people could have had him winning. And as you're seeing from the pictures that we displayed, okay, we tried to find some good ones of these guys. Roy Callender was very complete. A lot of muscle, very well put together. Wasn't really lacking a whole lot. You know, maybe the legs could have come up just a little bit, but especially for that time frame, very muscular and very good. Could he have won the 81 Olympia? I didn't have him winning. I had Danny Padilla winning. Could he have been in 2nd place? Absolutely. I would have had no problem with that whatsoever. But when it comes to being underrated, I thought Roy Callender probably should have had more pro wins to his credit. That's not a lot for a guy of his stature, but Roy Callender, again, right up there on that list, but we're going to put him in the 5th place slot. All right, landing in 4th place, the Thunder from Down Under, my man Sonny Schmidt. What a great bodybuilder. And look at the physique on this guy. To think he only won 1 show in his career, which was the Masters Olympia, later in his career, 1995, the only win that Sonny would ever take. But 18 top 5 finishes, and in the top 10 of the Olympia, only 4 times, always on the cusp. But I always looked at Sonny's physique and thought to myself, how is this guy not winning more shows? Very complete, wide shoulders, small waist, flaring thighs. Didn't really seem to be missing anything. Wasn't the most ripped guy out there, but as we all know, bodybuilding is about more than just who's the most ripped. So I gotta land Sonny into that top 4 position at 4th place. And he just got edged out by a guy that not a lot of people know unless you're a bodybuilding historian. But in finishing in 3rd place is Theory Pastel. Now, this is not a name that rolls off everybody's tongue. You talk about the greatest bodybuilders of all time. That's not a name that immediately jumps to the top of the list. But as you look at pictures and video, and you look at the history of bodybuilding, and you see Theory Pastel, who competed from about 89 to 95, I believe, he only had 1 pro win. Another guy, just 1 pro win, which was the 1990 Grand Prix in Holland, where he beat, here's a name for you, Momo Benaziza. Talk about your great bodybuilders. And unfortunately, Benaziza doesn't make this list only because he got cut short in his career, kind of like Mike Francois. Unfortunately, their careers got cut short for different reasons. But so you couldn't really put him in here with the most underrated bodybuilders. They were both doing very well. But 20 times, Theory Pastel would finish in the top 5. 29 times, he was 6. So 29 times this guy places somewhere between 6th and 2nd place. Olympia top 10 finishes, only 2. Now, Theory wasn't the biggest guy out there, okay? He wasn't big by stature. But as you look at the pictures, this guy had it all. Deep abs, tiny waist, had those beautiful high pecs. Arms were huge for his size. Thighs were flaring, beautiful sweep to his thighs, formidable from the back. Now, it could be said that he just had a lot of tough competition. Look at those dates I gave you, folks. 1989 to 1985. 1989 to 1995. That was about as prime time gets for competition in the IFBB. So he definitely had some great competition to go against, but this is a guy who I definitely got to put in that top three, which is why he made the top three in terms of underrated bodybuilders. Could he have done more? Possibly. Again, whether that's up for speculation or not. But a very good career. I thought it could have been a great career. But getting the top two guys, this is where I had to take a lot of time to think about this one, okay? Because these two guys are so neck and neck when it comes to, I don't want to say potential, but the physique that they brought out there and how good it was and how we talk about both these guys' names today. But finishing in second place, this was a tight race, is my man Bob Paris. Now, this will be the freakiest stat. I gave you guys a preview last week of this. Bob Paris has a distinction of never winning a pro show. Think about that for a second. Bob Paris, this is a name that when you talk about the greatest bodybuilders, about who would do well if Classic was around back then, right? This guy's name pops up. He may have been the poster boy for why Classic was put together. But he never won a pro show. Actually, the highest he got was third place. Did that a couple of times. He never even sniffed a runner-up position. This is unbelievable. Now, again, Bob competed in the most difficult and competitive time frame in bodybuilding history. All right, let me just give you this breakdown. In 1983, when Bob wins the national championships, he beats Roy Littlemeyer, Mike Christian, Jeff Williams, Matt Mendenhall, and a guy named Rich Gaspari that might ring a bell to some of you bodybuilding fans out there. How about that for a top six? He beat them all. That's how good his physique was. 3-time top 10 Olympian, 16 times landed in the top 5, and his highest finish was third place. 9 times he finished in third place. Now, the question is why? Why did Bob Paris never win a pro show? Why is Bob Paris considered so underrated? Now, some of this is attributed to Bob himself. Bob was never the most ripped guy on stage. If there was an Achilles heel, it was his conditioning. Trust me, I know a little bit about that. He had all the tools, beautiful shape. Arguably one of the best shapes in bodybuilding history, right? Compared to none other than Steve Reeves himself. And everybody knows that follows my stuff. I was always a huge Steve Reeves fan. Still am. Got lots of his Hercules posters, lots of his memorabilia. Steve Reeves, to me, the epitome of the male physique. Now, keep in mind, Steve Reeves was around in the 40s and early 50s to have that physique with the wide shoulders and the waist and the thighs. Steve was just complete from head to toe. But Bob Paris would follow. Good-looking guy. Posing was masterful. Again, you talk about the greatest posers of all time. Guess whose name is always there in that top 3-4 names? Bob Paris. So this is going to come as a surprise to you guys because for a lot of you, you would think, well, who's better than Bob that was underrated? Who do you think, as you guys are going down your Rolodex of names right now, thinking, well, wait a minute, he already mentioned Theory Pastel, he already mentioned Bob Paris, who's left? Well, I'm going to give you who's left and who's number one. Who came in at number one? This is so easy to figure out for me. And once you see these pictures, and there's plenty of video out there because it's not that long ago in the scheme of things. But coming in at number one, the most underrated bodybuilder of all time is Charles Claremont. That's right. Good old Charlie from the UK. I tell you what, you want to see a resume, okay? 4-time pro winner, okay? Beating the likes of Flex Wheeler, Kevin Levrone, Theory Pastel, and Sonny Schmidt that we just mentioned. So 2 other guys that were the most underrated. He's beaten a lot of the pro guys. 4 times he was in the Olympia and finished in the top 10. When you look at his record, his conditioning, his overall physique. Now, this is not a small guy, okay? Charles Claremont at 6 foot tall, probably somewhere in the 230 range, if I'm guessing. This was a formidable opponent, competing against the likes of guys I just mentioned and everybody else in that era in the 90s that was widely considered the most competitive era of all when it comes to pro bodybuilding. I look at pictures today and I wonder, how did Charles Claremont not beat a lot of these guys? His conditioning, in his size, in his appearance, in his posing and presentation was unbelievable. Now, I have heard, because I have had discussions with the late, great Peter McGuff, because we used to speculate these kind of questions all the time. Who was the most underrated? Who was the most overlooked? Who was the most this, the most that? And we had a lot of fun always debating these topics. But I asked him, I says, why did Charles Claremont not win more shows? I mean, he only won 4 shows in his career for that stellar physique. And the only thing Peter could come up with was, one, the caliber of competition of guys that he was standing next to was that great. That it was a very difficult time to try to get into that top 3, let alone win a show. And if you had to pick something, is that he was a little on the narrow side. Now, again, for a guy who's 6 foot tall, it's difficult to be wide, right? I mean, Paris was 6'1", and also considered a little on the slender side. So both guys, you know, height is not your friend in bodybuilding when it comes. That's why it's a rarity to have somebody like a Ferrigno or a Ralph Moeller, or somebody who's 6'4" plus. That's of any good when you get into that. You know, Quincy, Tony Freeman. I mean, we've had a few guys over the years that were 6'2" or so. Gunther, but very difficult to get good physiques when you get over 6'2". That's what made Arnold so great, right? Whether his debated height was 6'2", 6'1", or anything else, because I've heard everything in the spectrum. You'd swear by talking to fans Arnold's 5'8" these days, but I can assure you that's not the case as I stand next to him all throughout the year. So, Charles Claremont, your number 1 pick, most underrated. This is a guy I think should have won more pro shows. I think should have placed higher in the Olympia. And again, folks, we're not speculating whether it was politically driven, whether there was any rational reasons, and nothing nefarious went on. Okay, this is just for a table for discussion. I think he had a great physique. I think he could have been given maybe a better look. Again, tough competition back then, very difficult to place as high as you could place back when you had guys like Flex Wheeler and Kevin Levrone and Sean Ray and Lee Labrada and some of these guys standing next to you. These are some of the all-time greats on that same stage. So big hats off. I did meet Charles a couple years back over in the UK. After many, many years, we actually got to meet face-to-face. And what a gentleman. What a great guy. Still in great condition, training people out there in the UK, passing that knowledge along to the next generation. So big shout out to Charles Claremont. You are, my friend, the most underrated bodybuilder of all time. Folks, get those comments in. I'll be monitoring the second this comes out because I'm real curious to see who's your picks for the most underrated bodybuilder of all time. That's going to wrap it up for this week's edition. I'm Bob Chick. We're out.